Great. Okay, so before I launch into the trends, I'll talk a little bit about what I do and where we get our trends from. Because if you're a marketer or you work in R&D, if you're going to invest significant amount of money into development, then it probably makes sense to understand how we're getting our insight. So very basically, I run an agency out of Singapore. I've been in Asia for 20 years, as Rana said, and that includes Japan, China, Hong Kong, and now split my time between Singapore and Malaysia. I work globally, but the work I do is very much focused on Asian consumer consumption and product trends. And what we do is we really speak to experts across industries as well as in personal care, along with consumers to understand insights, and this really goes into the product development side. Aside from the consultancy work, we also run a trends platform where we upload content every day. I have trend forecasters, about 20 of them throughout the region, and they are sending through intelligence on a daily basis. And because we're proactively looking for new insights and shifts in behavior, we're able to, I think, better understand what's going on rather than reactively looking vis-a-vis on a project basis. So we kind of classify trends in a kind of ecosystem, which is meta trends, micro trends, intelligence, and product trends. And through this, we're able to understand the cultural, societal, and political and economic drivers, which actually help form consumer choice in buying a product. So this is a kind of almost a complicated web, but it's important to look at those big drivers that are happening in society, so you better understand your consumers and what they might want and how it might resonate with them in the future. So we've got 10 trends to get through, and it's about the longest presentation I've ever done. So I just really hope that we can do it and you're left stimulated. So the first trend that I'll jump into is gourmet rituals. And with this, we're really looking at the understanding that, so before I really launch in, what I'm trying to do is understand, or we're trying to project where we think consumers will purchase over the next 3 years and what's important to them. And it might not necessarily be as concentrated into color cosmetics or skincare as maybe you'd like to see, but as far as we're concerned, health, wellness, and other factors drive this interest. So we're looking across category. So, gourmet rituals, first slide. Okay, so the beauty industry obviously has long borrowed from the food category for ingredient as well as marketing inspiration. And this trend has accelerated with the global growing interest in naturally positioned products. Gourmet rituals actually analyzes the usage of indulgent and luxurious ingredients to provide personal care inspiration. And so this is actually inspiration or content taken from my own trend platform. And some of this actually started back in 2010. So we've really been tracking this a long time and seeing how this trend has evolved. And so basically there was a piece also that we put the other week. And what's been really clear is the link between food, ingredients, and beauty is definitely becoming stronger. For example, we've been looking at product launches recently that include white truffles, sherbet, matcha, white latte. And these are no longer items that you would see on a food menu, but also now, obviously, in beauty launches. And what's really interesting is that we're thinking about the idea that there's a real imagery associated with food preparation. And this kind of leverages the emotional connection that consumers have with gourmet foods. Other gourmet ingredients in market right now include Garnier's Matcha Extract Cleansing Gel, Korean Cosmetics compact brand Essence, which comes in the shade White Latte, and Maison's Apple Smoothie Peeling Gel. And then, of course, there's kind of Aromatica's Sea Daffodil Aquatona, which is actually incidentally vegan. Again, a term which has been borrowed from the food category. So what? Provenance and romance are routinely used in the food and beverage categories to cement the emotional relationship between desire and cravings. The beauty category is actually following in this vein, and it's similarly shifting to create a stronger relationship between the consumer and the product. Raw honey sounds way more exciting and way more emotionally appealing than just honey. Truffle oil sounds more luxurious than argan oil, which 5-10 years ago felt luxurious. While apple smoothie is more evocative than just plain old apple. So adding a food context, whether it's a preparation or a gourmet element, can help bring more description to the beauty category, which actually I think in the past has been very literal on the application side rather than the emotion. So we feel that emotion is actually driving this. The next trend I'm going to talk about is genetically mine. So startups such as 23andMe, Fitness Genes, Ubiome, DNA Fit, Origin, and Habit are moving into the health and fitness space. I mean, these are all big, Silicon Valley companies that have been funded hugely. And all of them involve a DNA test promising that mail-order genetic tests can detect which changes are needed from a consumption and exercise perspective to help lose weight or make health changes. So according to a recent BBC article, some researchers believe the global market for such kits as these, which are actually already on the market, could be worth more than $10 billion by 2022. So what we're looking at is really, it's a question of when and not if we get personalised tests that figure out what microbiomes live on our skin and what particular skincare our skin needs for it to look optimal. Everyone has around 100 trillion microorganisms, including bacteria, both friendly and not, living inside each of us. Everyone's microbiome is unique, and it's shaped by where you were born, what you eat, what products we use, and more. Antibacterial soaps, preservative-laden skincare, and antibiotic overuse has actually led to skin imbalances. And there's a brand out there, Mother Dirt, which is making waves at the moment, and they've actually launched a microbiome rebalancing skincare. And they claim that their skin facial mist can replenish good bacteria. La Roche-Posay, Olay, and Johnson & Johnson are all investing heavily in this area. But my prediction is that we'll see the same approach to personalised testing as we are seeing with health and fitness, rather than the one-size-fits-all that are clearly too generic. So to kind of put that in layman's terms, the things that we're seeing in the health and wellness space, we're going to see with skincare very soon. Mother Dirt is a great product, but it's for everyone. If we're all unique with our microbiome, then we need something for us. Innovation labs. So this is more of an industry perspective trend. So an intrapreneur is a person who behaves like an entrepreneur whilst being employed by a company. Intrapreneurs develop their ideas into workable product by the companies they work for. And so we're starting to see a real shift in company culture that encourages employees to act as intrapreneurs in a bid to get them more innovative. So about 12 years ago, I consulted to a really well-known FMCG company in Japan when I was there, that had a standalone office in Tokyo, and it had its sole remit of coming up with big ideas that were not brand specific, which if you work for a big corporation is quite a luxury. And basically this office was closed off to the rest of the organisation, and I was brought in as a strategist to help them come up with, innovative concepts. But these are known as skunk works, innovation labs, and some of them are actually, run as standalone businesses that operate like venture funds. And they're primarily driven by a need to remain competitive. It's an idea that's come out of Europe and the US, but we're starting to see actually a bit more of it here in Asia. And for example, Unilever in Singapore has created a co-work area with the idea that you've got these young businesses upstairs in their space and they can tap into that creative thinking. J&J now runs a competition similar to Dragon's Den. And these corporations, by acting more nimble and agile, will start to resemble the kitchen sink brands, which we now know are a real force in the beauty industry. And you know, like a lot of these one-man brands that we're seeing, which have really taken off. And the key driver to the success of these businesses is investing in ideas that could disrupt a company's core business. And it's also a way of improving current ways of doing business. So, for example, to bring it back to beauty, you know, it could be that a well-known antibacterial brand, think the Dettols of this world, could be developing a microbiome personal care brand, which is the complete opposite of what they're doing. Or a brand which is not cruelty-free could be taking steps to add a vegan collection. So it's this idea about investing in something which is completely disruptive to your core line. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. The next trend I call second skin. This is a little bit more conceptual, so I hope I can get it across. It's a shift towards formulations that offer tangible, to the touch, as well as sight benefits. For example, you know, we have contact lenses that allow us to change eye colours, or, you know, the double eyelid tape, which is very common in this part of the world. There's also tape that women can use to pull back wrinkles here. You know, these are all very sort of physical and tangible products. But second skin is more like a cosmetic product that offers these real, tangible benefits, but using formulations. MIT in the States recently announced the launch of a new technology that does the skin equivalent of being liquid Spanx. So Spanx are the knickers that pull you in. This is, you know, taken completely off their site. But this idea that you can add this, you know, this formulation to your skin and actually start to lift it tangibly will be something that we're going to start to really see in skincare. And obviously they claim to reduce skin puffiness, and it's the next big thing in eye bags. So they used a compression technology which is said to create a second skin-like film using silicon-based polymers, which in turn helps to reduce the puffiness. So it's kind of, you know, it's a product which instantly helps, but will also help over the long term. And it can also help with cellulite too. So I can imagine there'll be a lot of people jumping all over this. But what's really interesting about this technology is it taps into the idea, which is rapidly shifting, of what we look like in real life versus what we look like on our handphones. Once, particularly, we've used apps like May2 and all the other apps. And particularly that's relevant for millennials and younger generation. And once you've used a touch-up app, then actually you almost kind of prefer that version of yourself than your real life one. And it's kind of this idea, whatever it takes to get that, I'll have that, even if it looks artificial. And we, you know, from our research, we feel that that's where millennials are going. It doesn't even have to look natural. And it's also that idea that nowadays consumers live from moment to moment. We don't live in a full day. You know, it's all about the moments. And Google's following a similar philosophy with its advertising targeting too. We only need to look good for a short time, whether you're on a date or in a business meeting. We don't have to look good for the whole day. We just need to look good for a selfie. So that's our idea there. Semi-surgical. So this is an interesting area, and it refers to the halfway ground between going to the salon and getting a facial using equipment, or getting a full-on surgical procedure at the cosmetic clinic. And so we really predict that the growth of semi-surgical procedures and the wider acceptance of these will now start to become part of the personal care beauty regimen. So I mentioned, well, I didn't actually mention earlier, but I'm actually here in Seoul this week, apart from to speak here. I'm working on a project for a university in Singapore. One of my colleagues is here too. And we're trying to understand the future of beauty in Asia. And along with interviewing lots and lots of experts, we're talking to consumers. And the insight from some of these interviews that comes out is that, well, basically our version of what we think is natural is not natural, but also the lengths that women will go to look beautiful. One of the expert interviews we did was actually a aesthetic doctor. And she actually mentioned that she had seen a noticeable growth in microneedling. And I think in the US they're known as vampire facials. But what's really interesting is how what would once be considered a bit of an extreme facial is now moving into the norm. You know, the celebrities have been doing it. Kim Kardashian has had her photo with a vampire facial. Lots of other celebrities in this part of the world have it too. And so we really believe that this will start to become something that women will do at home. So microneedling treatments are actually relatively new in the United States. However, microneedling is actually quite a normal part of Asian culture in terms of facials. And it's been used to help with skin rejuvenation. It doesn't actually stimulate pigment production because it doesn't heat the skin up. So it's actually seen as a really safe alternative to lasers and IPL. And also, it's basically what can happen if you go for a treatment. It can puncture 300,000 microvessels on the epidermis within 5 minutes. So we're in a region known for its complicated skin, regimens and women willing to spend 30 minutes per time on their steps and their washing. So it's really a question of when and not if a major brand embraces the concept of microneedling and repackages this along with a skincare product and turns it into a DI kit that can be used by home consumers. And it's noticeable, if you go to Alibaba, you'll notice that derma rollers designed to be used at home are now $1. So these are $1 a piece, and making it a very affordable home procedure. So beauty Asianization. Just as we've seen with the huge interest in K-beauty, we will see other facets of Asian beauty, products, rituals, tools, and procedures making their way out of Asia, as well as within new markets in the region. So when a US publication like New York Magazine runs a whole feature on the benefits of facial rollers, you know instantly this is the next thing that's set to disrupt the beauty industry, and particularly those overseas. So just like the facial sheet mask, which was popular in Asia and has now gone to Europe and the US, the facial roller, I believe, is set to do the same thing. So what's interesting about this idea is that the rollers can be used with facial sheet masks, so it can be incorporated into current routines. And it's a product that both men and women can embrace if they're not quite ready for the microneedling from the slide before. But people know that it can actually up their makeup game. And once I think consumers in this part of the world, and particularly in Korea, where people are very susceptible to wanting to know what can improve their skin, we think that these will start to really move forward. So what's interesting is that the jade rollers have actually been used in China since the 17th century. So it actually creates avenues for a Chinese brand to claim that ritual of their own. I mean, so far we've had, the rituals from Japan and Korea dominate, and now this could be an opportunity for Chinese brands to jump all over this. From a forecaster's point of view, or a consultant's point of view, I think they probably need to be a bit more contemporary in design. I think they also need to be, there is the possibility of becoming smarter from an E perspective. And they could even work with smartphone apps to diagnose and keep track of your skin. And you could even have push messages sent to your phones to diagnose, and kind of say, the weather's terrible today, add more moisturizer, stress, you've got a lot of meetings on today, might want to add more essence. And so I think this kind of idea that we can produce a digital and to this analog regimen could really move forward in the future. And it also does what the holy grail of bringing the brand into the consumer's hand. So next gen anti-pollution. So, you can't open up an industry publication at the moment without reading something from, anti-pollution. So it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I think we can safely assume that this is going to continue to go forward, but how will it evolve is the key question. So we started to examine the ideas of actually, so this is sorry to say, but this is something we looked at 6 years ago, the evolution of products that could claim to fix what's happening in your environment. Obviously, the work we've been doing in China for the last 20 years will show that, people are worried about the environment and they can't do a lot about the pollution, but they can certainly try and put some barriers in place. And that's not just China, that goes for a lot of cities around the world, including London. So basically, what we're looking at is, companies have gone on to target consumers based on their geolocation as well as environmentally issues. But it's become abundantly clear that food, beverages, detergents and personal care products that can create this barrier are helping to reassure the consumer. So, for example, in Japan, there are a number of home care launches which you spray it on as fabric care, and it says that it removes the pollution from your clothes and your skin. But it's not, from our perspective and looking from the consumer perspective, what they're really after is not just the protection, but the ability to fight back or provide a real barrier of sorts. And to some degree, it's the same philosophy to the trend I mentioned earlier, that whole idea about second skin, which is a tangible product that could change your skin tone, the texture, and even its look. And I think very soon we'll start to see that in anti-pollution, a moisturizer that will start to change colour when it shows that you are being exposed to high levels of pollution. Something tangible that the consumer can go, right, there's something I can do here. I can add another layer, or I can do something about that. So it's about that idea that, the anti-pollution skincare in the future will provide repair functions, and it will be the ability to also detect issues. And I think if anyone saw the recent advertising from Body Shop in London as well, they've been doing a campaign where they've taken over a number of bus stops, and they basically filter the dirty air, and they claim that it delivers 95% cleaner air to bus stops. So if you're a brand and you want to advertise your products, no better way to kind of, take over a bus stop. Everyone commutes in Asia, and actually claim that apart from on your skin, you're actually helping to clean the environment too. Okay, rebooting sustainability. All right, I'm going to get a bit moralistic here, but, basically everyone who is on this planet probably has a moral duty to, look after it. We go into homes here and they're highly hygienic, they're pleasant, they're wonderful places, but the moment you step out, they become quite filthy. And so one of the most striking problems is that in each and every consumer interview I do, particularly in Asia, and I'm really sad to say this, that when I talk about sustainability or what does sustainability mean to you, no one really knows, and they don't really have any answers, and they certainly aren't looking for brands that offer that. So that's just the status quo here. But there's no reason why that can't change, obviously. And so the real issue, obviously, in this part of the world is that there's no real connection between the products that people consume and the worsening of the planet's environment. And which I think is actually incredibly ironic, because consumers in this part of the world are more connected to how they eat and how it might affect their body. And they're always connecting their inner and outer beauty, and they're always affected by what season it is and choosing their foods and their beauty ingredients off the back of it. So I think the fundamental issue, and we obviously will start to see more of this, and this is obviously coming from a top-down approach from governments too, is that the language that marketers and brands choose to speak about sustainability will change and must change. And right now they're kind of doing it on a level of, well, here's an anti-pollution skin cream, rather than a bigger level, hey, let's do something about this pollution, sorry. And so basically, I really truly believe that brands like Unilever right now are making huge steps to actually try and combat this. And we're going to start to see more brands in this part of the world finally realizing that it's good for business. You save money on packaging, and for millennial consumers who are worried about these issues, because actually I should probably take a step back and say that it is the younger consumers who mention it more than the older ones. It is a key concern for them. So that one's a bit preachy, but I still believe that will become more important. Okay, so health, not wealth. So So this trend really connects how millennials are seeking experiences over possessions and how exercise, fitness and free-from diets are influencing beauty. I mean, you know, you can't pick up a product in the drugstore or supermarket nowadays without it saying free from. I mean, the whole, the whole packaging is given over to that first gateway. It's free from this. So it's really key. But obviously, exercise has become a bigger part of lifestyles in this part of the world. I mean, what's really amazing here in Seoul, and I come here probably every 3 to 4 months, is even the proliferation of Pilates studios in the last few months. It was all about yoga, and now it's all about Pilates. So exercise and fitness and wellness is a huge part of life in developed cities in Asia now, and obviously these will continue to grow. You know, if we look at consumer behavior where people post selfies of their clean and vegan foods, I mean, I did some research recently in Bangkok, and a lot of Thai girls really aspire to this, you know, yoga lifestyle. It kind of denotes that they're, you know, knowledgeable and they look after themselves, and they're really, you know, seeking foods which are not necessarily part of their cultural heritage to demonstrate they are living more cleanly. And so, you know, obviously people are posting tags like, you know, hashtag vegan or eat clean or, you know, Fitspo. And so we're starting to see the emergence of high-end urban wellness retreats that tap into this behavior. So this idea that obviously beauty is highly tied in with fitness and health and imagery in this part of the world. And so these trends will really start to directly impact the skincare and cosmetic industry as people start to seek brands which reflect their cleaner living choices that they're making in their own lives. If you're eating a vegan diet or an eat clean and you're tagging Fitspo, then you're probably not going to go for a mainstream brand that doesn't have that imagery or on their packs from an ingredient or marketing perspective. On top of that, obviously, is the millennial desire to share this with their friends and other people around them. And as we see millennials seeking a more holistic approach to their beauty and fitness and their fashion and how they holiday, for example, Airbnb has come through, you know, their desire. We'll start to see more kind of shift in this area. So, for example, you know, people seeking out alkaline water as well as using hydrogen water beauty products, which is starting to become a really big category in Japan. I think will come here next and then head throughout the rest of Asia and then possibly go overseas. But obviously behind all that, drinking alkaline water, using hydrogen water on skin, is the idea of the provenance of that water. You know, where does that water come from? You know, you can't just write aqua on your packs anymore. It has to be, it's this type of water, and that will become key. But the images I'm showing here tap back into this idea of this holistic beauty lifestyle that people are seeking. So, for example, there's Harrods in the UK launched its wellness clinic recently. And it's a whole wellness clinic dedicated to well-being and beauty. I mean, they don't just say well-being, they add beauty on there as well. And they talk about this idea about transforming their guests inside and out, which has always been part of the Asian beauty lexicon. It starts from within and goes out, and obviously now headed to the West. You know, they have 14 luxury treatment rooms, 2 personal training studios, and they even have a photography room which features a 3D imaging system which reveals how others see you, should you want to know. Now, in a society where I'm actually doing a lot of work where I talk to women here about their image and how they feel about their image, this would take off in a minute because people are, you know, really are interested in how others perceive them. Good or bad. And it's all about this self-care. And beauty obviously taps into that with the rituals as well. Saks Fifth Avenue launched its Wellery in New York fairly recently. Again, very, very similar concept to the Harrods idea. And Isetan in Japan has had its apothecary for years and years and years. And basically this idea that the brands it sells all reflect this lifestyle, which is what people are moving to. And even the aesthetic doctor that we interviewed in Singapore as part of that bigger research, interestingly revealed to us that she is opening a wellness clinic with a focus on skincare and image in, she didn't say what island, I assume it's an Indonesian island just 45 minutes away from Singapore, to tap into that idea that Southeast Asian consumers are seeking the same thing. So, industry there. Final trend, instant boost. Okay, so this is a analysis we put on our service recently. So about a month or so ago, 6 weeks maybe, there was a Google report that came out that analysed French, Japanese and American consumers with regards to masking. And what this Google report analysed was that masking in Japan had fallen from favour, and that was obviously based on their search results among Japanese consumers. And so while this large-scale analysis paints a comprehensive picture of what is being searched, it didn't actually reveal what regimen, if any, had taken the place of masking. And obviously anything like that is looking at what's now and not what's in the future. So obviously we got very interested and thought, right, well, what if they're not searching for masking, what are they searching for? So we got out there and did some research. But obviously, you know, from the masking industry, a lot of the masking stuff that we see out of Japan then went elsewhere and now is global, did start in Japan. So if they're not doing it anymore, this could have ramifications for global consumers. So there was a time when, you know, the facial sheet mask at night was an essential personal care ritual in Japan. And, you know, and I believe that the global cosmetics category for masking is set to be worth 336 million by 2024. So it's a significant category. So what we found was if they're not using these facial sheet masks as diligently as they once were, and there are other drivers for that, people are, you know, working harder, staying in their careers longer and so on and so forth, what's jumped in? And what we actually found was that Japanese manufacturers themselves are starting to kind of integrate new ideas for where masking can take place. So the idea that it doesn't just have to take place at that time or in that format. So a great example of how this is happening is in April of this year, a Japanese brand called Sabarino released a series of morning masks for usage upon waking. And the primary purpose of these facial sheet masks, which are used in the morning, is to refresh your skin for the day ahead, which makes sense because now women, you know, they're at work, they have a more face-to-face role, and they need to look their best in the morning, whereas at night, it doesn't matter so much. They can put a sleeping mask on and go to sleep. So these make the same premise, you know, they're based, the marketing has the same premise as masking, but instead of being presented in the form of a regular face sheet packaging, they're actually come in pull-out pouches, and then users can leave the sheets on their face for at least, you know, 60 seconds before removing, so it's faster. And what it does is it gives the skin a more refreshed and toned feeling. You can get a pouch of 28 sheets for about, how much is that? 1,300 yen, so maybe around $10, $11. And what's really interesting to me from a fragrance perspective is that the scents are suggestive of breakfast. So the scents don't come in citrus or floral or any of that, you know, we've seen it all before stuff. They come in yogurt variations or fruity herb, the kind of things that people are looking for in the morning for brekkie. So what, right? So rather than shrinking, the face sheet mask in Japan is effectively innovating. Instead of focusing on deep treatments, masks as well as other personal care goods are being chosen more as a quick fix. Masking is not seen as a luxurious beauty treatment anymore. It's actually a fun and easy way to refresh yourself. And so ongoing design innovations in this area mean that users of the more traditional style face packs might actually move on to something that's a bit more convenient. It could be used in the morning, could be used on the go. I mean, if I've got one in my bag, I'm more likely to pop it onto my face when I'm at, you know, I go to the loo, I put it on, come out, and I refresh my face. So the products that promote anti-aging care obviously very popular with women in their 30s in this part of the world when people believe they start to age. And so if masking concepts can actually introduce some of those elements to the moment these are on refreshment, why not have an anti-aging claim on there? I also think that this market could kind of be boosted in that way too. And so obviously with masking, there's always that balance between, finding convenience as well as efficacy. Okay, so that's my 10 trends. So thank you very much for your time. And if there's any questions, you can come up and see me after. Thank you.